My name is Marin, and like Blair said, I am a certified oncology dietitian. I work for Legacy Salmon Creek, and I see patients while they're going through treatment for cancer, either radiation or chemotherapy. And I also will see them for a period of time after completing treatment. My services are free to anyone who has cancer treatment through Legacy Salmon Creek. So if any of you are currently or were treating with Legacy and are interested in meeting with me one-on-one, that's an option as well. Um, so today I'm going to be talking about the foods that help keep your immune system strong and in a position to help prevent cancer, prevent recurrence, or fight a current diagnosis of cancer. Okay. So before I go into the foods, I'm just going to talk about some terms that I'll be mentioning just to make sure everyone is familiar so you understand what we're discussing. So the first one is phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are specific nutrients in plant foods that have health benefits to humans. And there are thousands of different phytonutrients, and scientists are only just now uncovering all of the various purposes of them. They actually are all very beneficial to plants as well, and it turns out they're helpful to humans. Free radicals are unstable molecules that can cause damage in the body, and this can occur as a result of just the general working of your body and metabolizing processes. It can be from external factors or from chemicals in our food. And so free radicals are something that is best to be avoided or limited. And oxidation is the damage that occurs in the body because of free radicals. Antioxidants, which is a term that probably most people are familiar with, are molecules that can stabilize the free radicals and prevent the oxidation damage. And so a lot of the foods that we'll be talking about have antioxidants and the phytonutrients that are so helpful for human health. A carcinogen is any compound or substance that can contribute to cancer development. And this can be something found in our environment, it can be something in our food, or that component in food can interact in our body in a way that turns it into a carcinogen. And so the foods that we'll be talking about will help eliminate or reduce exposure to those carcinogens. And then lastly, inflammation. Inflammation is something that can be acute or chronic. When it's acute, that's actually a positive thing. If you have an injury, your body triggers an immune response to try and fix that injury. But if you have low level chronic inflammation that is over an extended period of time, that's what can lead to damage to cells or blood vessel walls. And that damage may eventually play a role in cancer development. Okay, so some facts about how cancer grows and develops. So, cancer, in many cases, is a very long process that takes years to develop into something that can be seen and felt enough to diagnose. For instance, for someone who may go in for a mammogram and find that they have, say, a small lump, stage 2 breast cancer, oftentimes that tumor has probably been there for 7 to 10 years before it was actually big enough to be diagnosed. And cancer can develop as a result of many different factors from both genetic and environmental causes, and lifestyle factors also play a large role. Age is also a big factor because as we age, our body and our immune system becomes less efficient at repairing the damage that's done to our cells and DNA. So, although there are certain factors in cancer development that are less in our control, such as genetics, and I'll talk about that in a minute, one major component to eliminating cancer growth before it can start, slowing the growth of existing cancer, and preventing recurrence is in eating the foods that keep our immune system as strong as possible. So, I want to share some interesting facts about cancer. Um, it's been shown that on average, human DNA takes about 800 hits or attacks per hour. That means that every single hour, there is potentially a chance for our DNA to become damaged or mutated from various environmental or internal factors, and it's up to our immune systems to repair that damage. If our immune system is not able to keep up on these repairs over time, this damage is what can lead to development and growth of cancer. It's estimated that the average American will develop cancer cells in their bodies 6 times in their lifetime. And autopsy reports have shown that 40 to 50% of people who died of non cancer related causes had cancerous cells in their body at the time of death, just not enough to be detectable. So that kind of demonstrates how common cancer actually is, and that it takes an extended period of time in most cases to reach a point where it's actually able to be diagnosed. According to the American Institute of Cancer Research, 42% of cancer cases and 45% of cancer deaths are attributed to lifestyle factors such as diet, excess weight, and lack of exercise. And lastly, this is the fact that's the most interesting to me. Certain foods have been shown to actually alter the way your genes express themselves. And this can be either a good or bad thing. So you can't change your genes themselves. So if you're predisposed to a certain cancer because of your genetics, what you eat can and does affect what your genes do. And foods can either turn on or off abnormal gene activations, which could either speed the growth of cancer or inhibit it. So, in that sense, foods can play a role in helping to overcome genetic history, at least to some extent, and in some cases. So, today we'll be talking about foods that you should eat and foods that you should have a little bit less of. And a lot of the foods that we'll be talking about that you should include are plant foods. And so I've included this quote from Michael Pollan. He's the author of numerous nutrition books because I love how it simplifies what often seems to be a confusing and contradicting topic of what to eat to be as healthy as we can be. So he says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That, more or less, is the short answer to the supposedly incredibly complicated and confusing question of what we humans should eat to be maximally healthy. So, foods that come from plants, such as vegetables, fruits, beans and legumes, grains, and nuts and seeds, have been shown to have significant health effects in the body. And this is primarily due to the concentration of phytonutrients in plant foods that have such important health benefits in our bodies. And if anyone isn't familiar with the blue zones, this is another interesting thing that sort of correlates the importance of the type of diet that you have. The blue zones are 5 places in the world that have the largest proportion of people who live the longest, many over 100 years old. And so scientists have studied the lifestyles of these people in these areas to see what they have in common. And in addition to things like strong social support, one of the things they have in common is that the majority of them get their food primarily from plant sources. Only one of these 5 places is in the US, and it's Loma Linda, California. The others are in Greece, Japan, Costa Rica, and Italy. The reason given for Loma Linda making the list is that it has the highest concentration of Seventh day Adventists in the US, and they are vegetarian as part of their religious practice, which indicates that they are likely getting more of their food from plant sources than many Americans who eat a typical American diet. And to demonstrate the significant impact that just making small changes can be, the American Institute of Cancer Research estimates that if the only diet change people in the US made was to increase the daily intake of fruits and vegetables to 5 servings per day, cancer rates could decline by as much as 20%. Okay, so now we'll get into talking about the foods that are especially helpful. And I want to point out as we talk about these that the goal is not to eat only these foods and nothing else. The goal is really just to try and get a couple of these into your diet each day or whatever is realistic for you, and to focus more on the couple of things that you can add in rather than taking things out of the diet. And so, having said that, the first group of foods is the cruciferous vegetables. According to the National Cancer Institute, this group of vegetables has been shown in animal studies, as well as studies done on cancer cells in a lab, that they can help protect cells from DNA damage. They can deactivate carcinogens. They are antiviral and antibiotic, as well as anti inflammatory. They can cause death of cancer cells, and they can inhibit the blood vessel formation that helps tumors grow, thereby reducing the spread of cancer cells. And as with trying to study the effect of any single food and how it interacts in the body, it can be difficult to reproduce these results in human studies due to there being variables between different people, such as taking into account any other foods that study participants might be eating, differences in how they prepare the food, how they report the food that they're eating, as well as specific lifestyle and environmental factors. But there was one study published in the Molecular Nutrition and Food Research Journal in 2022 that looked at the anti cancer effect of broccoli sprout juice. Broccoli sprouts, if you're not familiar with them, are considered to be much more potent in the cancer fighting compound called sulforaphane than fresh broccoli. And you'll see there's a picture of broccoli sprouts on this page. They look kind of like alfalfa sprouts. In this study, 30 postmenopausal women with breast cancer were given either broccoli sprout juice daily for 2 weeks or a placebo. At the end of the 2 week study, those given the broccoli sprout juice had better outcomes in tissue level biomarkers that measured cancer growth compared to those given the placebo. So, while more research and larger sample sizes are needed, this study did support that the compounds found in cruciferous vegetables supports cancer fighting activity. There was another article published in 2020 in the Journal of Oral and Maxillofacial Pathology that reviewed a bunch of different studies looking at the same topic and found that people consuming broccoli regularly had higher levels of a tumor suppressor gene than those who had no or very little broccoli in their diet. So, eating more broccoli was actually able to suppress a gene that would promote cancer growth. Okay, and then the next group is garlic and onions. Garlic and onion are considered part of the allium family of vegetables. Garlic has a lot of different health benefits besides just fighting cancer. It can help lower blood pressure and cholesterol. It's a natural antibiotic. It's helpful for the immune system overall. And numerous studies have shown the ability of onions and garlic to help prevent or lower risk of cancer, as well as some studies that have looked at the effects of fighting cancer. So, according to a review of studies published in Phytotherapy Research in 2019, there are several proven ways that garlic and onions stop cancer growth. They disrupt cell cycles, they interfere with signaling pathways that can cause cancer growth, they cause cancer cell death, they eliminate and detoxify any toxins that we might come across in our food or our environment, and they provide antioxidants that specifically interfere with formation, growth, and spread of cancer cells. In a review of studies published in the International Journal of Preventive Medicine in 2018, numerous studies were analyzed in this article that showed the ability of garlic or aged garlic extract to interfere with the spread of various cancer cells, including breast, colon, lung, ovarian, and stomach cancers. Some of the studies also showed that there was an increase in cancer cell death, as well as higher enzyme activity that caused interference with cancer growth. And while many of the studies done with garlic and cancer cells showed how they interacted in a lab in test tubes, human studies that were reviewed in this article showed that patients with advanced cancer taking 500 grams of aged garlic extract daily had increased natural killer cell count and activity. And natural killer cells are a type of white blood cell that fights off cancerous cells or cells infected with a virus. Another study had patients with colorectal tumors take aged garlic extract daily, and they had a decrease in the number and size of the tumors. Garlic has also been shown to stop formation of N-nitroso compounds, which are also called nitrosamines. And those are a carcinogen that forms in the body after eating meats or other foods that are cured with nitrates. And I'll be talking about this a little bit later. And it can be kind of difficult to determine exact amounts of these foods to eat to demonstrate positive effects. But according to the American Institute for Cancer Research, a clinical trial demonstrated that eating 1.5 teaspoons of garlic per day activated genes that helped regulate the self destruction of abnormal cells and help with immune function. And similar to garlic, studying onion extract in cancers have determined that onions may be especially helpful at fighting colon, breast, kidney, ovarian, prostate, lung, and nasopharyngeal cancer by disrupting communication between these cells and leading to their death. And in onions, this is due to a phytonutrient called quercetin, which is also found in broccoli as well as apples. And like garlic, the strongest evidence was seen when exposing cancer cells directly to the extract in a lab, but eating onions is still shown to be beneficial. All right. And are there any questions? Okay. So I'll talk about fruits now. So the fruits shown here have all been shown to help protect against and repair DNA damage, reduce inflammation, and interfere with the start and growth of cancer through various ways. Berries have been shown to help fight cancer by fighting inflammation, inhibiting the start of cancer cells, protecting against DNA damage, as well as slowing growth and triggering death of cancer cells. Pomegranates have specific phytonutrients in them that have been shown to be antioxidants, anti inflammatory, and have anti cancer effects. A study published in the National Institute of Health National Library of Medicine showed that pomegranate juice was able to interfere with breast cancer development in a variety of ways, one of which was reducing the enzyme that turns certain hormones in the body into estrogen, which limited breast cancer cell start and growth, as well as other processes that lead to cancer cell promotion. Citrus fruits have been found to help get rid of free radicals in the body, as well as play a key role in the processes of cell survival and death. According to a study published in the Evidence Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine Journal in 2022, citrus fruits were shown to inhibit cancer cell growth and spread while also making specific cancer drugs more sensitive in targeting cancer cells. Cherries help fight inflammation, and they also naturally contain melatonin. And melatonin has been shown to have significant benefits in preventing and fighting cancer, especially breast cancer. According to a review published by the Endocrine Related Cancer Journal in 2015, higher melatonin levels were found to reduce estrogen receptor activity, which leads to estrogen positive breast cancers, and interfere with signal pathways that lead to the growth of breast cancer. And melatonin, just in general, has been shown to be a very powerful antioxidant that can be used as prevention for a variety of different cancers. Um, and to address the questions in the chat, garlic supplements are an option. I think it's a good idea to get a variety. So to try and have raw garlic. Cooked garlic does lose some of its cancer fighting compounds in the cooking process. However, if you crush the garlic first and wait 10 minutes to cook it, that will preserve some of it. And then you can also take garlic supplements just kind of as an added bonus to get more of the specific compounds in it. And I would recommend an aged garlic extract as a supplement. And since we're talking about supplements, I should also add that if you are someone that's going through treatment, it's always a good idea to ask your doctor first about any supplement. Sugar in fruits. So, no, you shouldn't be concerned about the sugar in fruits. There are a lot of different foods that do break down into glucose in your body, fruit being one of them, and also whole grains and beans and a couple of different vegetables. But the reality to that is there are so many different phytonutrients and antioxidants in these foods that are providing significant health effects to the body, um, that outweighs any sort of concern with sugar. And I can also talk about the role of sugar in cancer growth as well. For someone who might have type 2 diabetes that needs to manage their carbohydrate intake, that's kind of a different story. But even a diabetic diet allows for 30 to 45 or even 60 grams of carbohydrates per meal. And so that would include room for fruit. So if someone has that diagnosis, I can talk further about that in a separate consultation if you're interested. But in general, no, there are a lot of health benefits to fruits. So I wouldn't be concerned about the sugar. And then when it comes to cancer feeding off sugar, which is a question that I get a lot, um, there was a study looking at how cancer grows, and cancer cells were placed into petri dishes with three different fuel sources. One was cancer cells with just glucose, one was cancer cells with just amino acids, which is protein, and one was cancer cells with fatty acids. And it was found that in all of the cases, the cancer grew regardless of the food source. So the moral to that is not that there's nothing you can do about cancer spreading in your body. Um, the moral of it really is that cancer is very unpredictable and it behaves differently in every person depending on the type of cancer and the person and the cause of the cancer. And so the best thing that you can do is eat these foods that will provide the phytonutrients that strengthen your immune system to help fight the cancer. Um, Serving size of fruits like cherries, generally a half a cup of fruit is considered adequate. Okay. Um, okay, so I'll talk about flax seeds now. Flax seeds are an excellent source of fiber, and we'll talk about fiber in a little bit as well and the health benefits of that. And they also have omega-3 fats in them, which most of us need more of in our diet. Omega-3 fats are very good for the immune system. In addition, they are especially helpful for any cancer that's hormone dependent, such as breast, ovarian, or uterine, because flax seeds have a phytoestrogen compound in them. And the phytoestrogen, it was originally named that just because it's structurally very similar to the estrogen in the human body, but it doesn't behave the same way as estrogen in the human body. So what this phytoestrogen does is when we eat it, the phytoestrogen, the plant estrogen, will bind to our estrogen receptor cells. So then our own human estrogen is not able to bind to those cells and has to leave the body. And so it has an overall estrogen lowering effect. So flax seeds are helpful for anybody because of the fiber and the omega 3s, but especially for anyone with a hormone dependent cancer. For best absorption and effect, though, they should be ground. If the flaxseed is not ground, it essentially just has no effect. It will go right through you. Um, Dried fruits are beneficial. There's a couple of concerns, though. One is that most dried fruits have sugar added. It's hard to find some that don't have sugar added. And the second thing is because they've been dried, you can eat quite a bit more of them. And so do, you will be getting more sugar, even if there's no sugar added, than you would normally get just in eating fresh fruit. And so again, even though I said sugar isn't really a concern because you're getting the benefits of the food, you still would be getting larger amounts with the dried fruit. It would be a better option to go with fresh fruit because you're also getting um, all of the other components that make it what it is and not in such a concentrated source, if that makes sense. And the serving size of flaxseed, 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed a day is recommended. And it shouldn't exceed 4 tablespoons a day. And the only reason for that is because it's so high in fiber that it may cause a little bit of digestive issues like gas or bloating because of the high fiber content. Yes, frozen fruits are just as good as fresh. Sometimes they're even better depending on where you buy your fresh fruit, just because they're usually frozen soon after they're picked, as opposed to fresh fruit, which if you're buying from the grocery store, has to travel quite a ways. If you're getting it from the farmer's market, that would be a little bit different option, but frozen fruits are definitely just as good as fresh. Okay. So now we're going to talk about mushrooms. So research has shown that specific compounds in mushrooms, which are called beta glucans, have medicinal properties in humans that are very beneficial for the immune system and may therefore be helpful in slowing and stopping cancer growth. Mushrooms have been shown to help improve immune responses by increasing activity of white blood cells. So this is where mushrooms kind of differ from the foods that we've talked about so far. A lot of the other foods help stop cancer start and growth by preventing inflammation or providing antioxidants, but mushrooms actually make your immune system more responsive and more active. And so that's the one thing that kind of sets them apart from all of the other foods. They've also been shown to have other health benefits, such as improving cholesterol and increasing insulin production, which helps keep your blood sugar more stable. They are also a good source of fiber, and if they're grown under a UV light, they can be a good source of vitamin D. Turkey tail mushrooms have been studied a lot in cancer research, and there was a clinical trial sponsored by the National Institutes of Health where a product that was made with turkey tail was given to a group of patients with breast cancer following radiation therapy. And the results showed that there was an increase in natural killer cell activity and other cancer fighting cells in the immune system. Reishi mushrooms have also been shown to be very helpful for the immune system, and they are a natural antibiotic antiviral, and antifungal. And reishi mushrooms have been shown in studies to help prevent abnormal blood vessel formations that can help cancer grow, as well as limit cancer cells' ability to metastasize. Shiitake mushrooms have also been shown to help with immunity and inflammation, and they have a history of being used to help with diseases that are the result of a depressed immune system, such as AIDS, cancer, allergies, frequent colds and flu, liver diseases such as hepatitis. One study showed that after 4 weeks of eating half a cup of dried shiitake mushrooms a day, the participants had lower levels of inflammatory proteins and increased numbers of T cells, which help with immunity. And all mushrooms have the beta glucans that make these mushrooms so helpful, although the structure of each of them is different and can vary in its potency based on mushroom type, how it was grown, and other factors. The mushrooms that are most commonly eaten, like the button, cremini, and portobello mushrooms, have been shown in studies to help boost natural killer cell activity, increase overall immune responses, and in mice studies have been shown to slow cancer growth and increase cancer cell death in certain cancers. And so I want to point out there are a lot of these mushrooms on here that are very difficult to find in the store where you could eat them. So some of them are best to be taken as a supplement, but you will get benefits from the ones that you can eat as well. Okay, and so now looking at whole grains. So studies have shown that the more whole grains people get in their diets, the lower the risk of mortality from all causes, as well as the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers, particularly digestive related cancers. It's the fiber, as well as the specific phytonutrients in whole grains that are believed to be the reason for these benefits. It should be noted, though, that the benefits are mainly seen when whole grains are eaten instead of refined grains, such as choosing whole grain bread over white bread or brown rice over white rice. And we'll talk about refined grains in a little bit. And now looking at beans. So beans have fiber, antioxidants, and compounds that are called phytates that all work together to decrease cancer risk as well as other health risks. Because they add fiber to the diet, they can move things more quickly through the digestive tract, which lessens the time that toxins and other waste can sit in your body. And good fiber intake can also help with weight management, which can lower cancer risk of a variety of different cancers. Okay, so now for probiotics. Probiotics are live bacteria that populate the intestines. They are the result of fermentation from yeast, bacteria, and molds. Humans are estimated to have anywhere from 39 to 300 trillion bacteria in their bodies, and the majority of these are in our intestines. Of those bacteria in our intestines, it's believed that there are 300 to 500 different species in our intestines. And most people already understand that probiotics are helpful for digestive functions, but they are also very beneficial for overall immune function as well. The ways in which probiotics have been shown to be helpful against cancer are by controlling the division of cells that leads to the growth of cancer cells, either by killing cancer cells or letting out compounds that are harmful to the cancer cells and prohibiting their growth. They reduce enzymes that allow compounds in the body to become cancerous. They help to stimulate immune cells, such as T cells, B cells, and natural killer cells, to make them more responsive. And they also reduce the number of harmful substances in our intestines that come from either foods or environmental pollutants. Um, yes, kefir is a good product. It isn't on here only because it isn't as common as these ones, but kefir is considered a very good probiotic. Okay, and so now to talk about fiber. So as I've mentioned fiber already multiple times, um, that's one thing that all of these foods have in common is that they're high in fiber. So foods like vegetables, fruits, beans, whole grains, um, they include a good amount of fiber, which helps lower cancer risk in a variety of ways. First of all, as I've mentioned, it helps with weight management, which lowers overall cancer risk. Keeping your weight at a healthy level for you is considered cutting your risk, cancer growth, cancer development, and cancer recurrence significantly. It also speeds the time up that food is able to sit in our bodies, therefore reducing the amount of time that our cells have to interact with any cancerous compounds in our food. And additionally, foods that are high in fiber also happen to be very nutrient rich and have a lot of the compounds that help boost our immune system and provide cancer fighting benefits. Greek yogurt is also a good source of probiotics. Um, and there have been studies looking at um, dairy that's not considered fermented, so milk or cheese, something that wouldn't have probiotics, and dairy that does have probiotics. And there have been quite a bit more health benefits seen with eating dairy that has probiotics compared to dairy that does not. And yeah, with kefir having the added sugar, that's something that you'd want to keep in mind depending on your overall goals for your diet, but it will provide the probiotics that are helpful for your immune system. There are different types of bacteria in each of these different products, and you just want a wide variety of them. And because these probiotic foods have so many millions or billions of cultures in them, you generally don't even need to consume them that often to repopulate or add to the population of your intestines. Having a probiotic source a few times a week would be adequate. The exception would be if you are on a course of antibiotics, then you want to make sure um, have a good amount of probiotics to replenish the bacteria that were killed by the antibiotics. Okay, so I just want to point out that even if I didn't discuss a food in the ones that we just talked about, that anything that grows in the ground is going to be good for you. So all different fruits and vegetables, greens that weren't mentioned here, nuts and seeds, spices, these are all things that are very beneficial for the human body. Even some of the vegetables that get kind of a bad rap, like potatoes, those may not have as many nutrients as like a sweet potato, but they are still going to have some health benefit in the body. So there are different degrees of benefits, but anything that grows in the ground will be helpful. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what you should be eating less of. So we've talked mostly about plant foods up until now, and that doesn't mean that meat needs to be eliminated, not in any way, but meat in general should be an accent to a meal rather than the main focus of the meal. And that being said, there are a couple of types of meat that are best had in moderation or trying to limit as much as you can. And those are red meat, especially when cooked at a high temperature, such as grilling, as well as cured meats like pepperoni, bacon, sausage, and deli meats. All of these can form carcinogens in the body. In red meat, there are compounds such as heme iron, heterocyclic amines, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that can accelerate cancer growth. Heme iron, which is present in red meat even prior to cooking, has been shown to cause DNA damage, while heterocyclic amines are the result of cooking at high temperatures, such as barbecuing, and the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons develop in meat from the smoke that is often present in grilling. In cured meats that have been cured with nitrates, the carcinogens formed in the body after eating these meats are called N-nitroso compounds or nitrosamines, and they are formed when the nitrates in cured meat are broken down in the body. And as I mentioned earlier, garlic has been shown to actually inhibit this process from occurring. So, one way to minimize exposure to these carcinogens is to eat garlic if you are going to eat cured meat. Additionally, if you eat green leafy vegetables along with red meat, that may help counteract some of the negative effects from the heme iron in red meat. Eating large amounts of red meat has been consistently associated with higher rates of colorectal cancer specifically, though high red meat intake is also cautioned against for all types of cancer. The American Institute for Cancer Research recommends limiting red meat intake to 12 to 18 ounces per week. Okay, and then the last group of foods to try and eat a little less of is the refined grains and processed snacks. So, refined and processed grain foods such as white rice and white bread have been stripped of most of the nutrients and fiber. And as I already mentioned, eating more refined grains instead of whole grains has an overall negative impact on health and cancer development. And then simple sugars like candy bars, potato chips, certain crackers also have very little nutrition value, and eating too many of them can also lead to weight gain, which also, as we've talked about, increases the risk of many types of cancer. So I've included here just some really simple meal and snack ideas. One is to add broccoli sprouts to a sandwich or salad. As I mentioned, broccoli sprouts have quite a bit more of the cancer fighting compound than even broccoli. It's about 100 times more. And you can just put a small amount on a sandwich or a salad to add that benefit. And those can be found in the grocery store in the produce section. I find them at Winco or Fred Meyer, and I believe Safeway has them as well. Also, hummus with vegetables or whole grain crackers, a superfood protein powder with berries smoothie. So there's a lot of different superfood protein powders on the market. I like this one that's made by Orgain because it's affordable and you can find it at Costco or on Amazon. And it basically has all of the foods that we've talked about in a protein powder. So if you're someone that is going through treatment and say having a side effect like diarrhea where you can't have a lot of these high fiber foods, this protein powder is a great way to get those into your diet. And then instead of having just white pasta with spaghetti sauce, you could switch it for whole wheat pasta, chickpea pasta, or lentil pasta with marinara sauce. And that's a great cancer fighting meal. Or a black bean and quinoa bowl with vegetables. And then I wanted to include this recipe resource. So this is called cookforyourlife.org. And this is meant for people who have had cancer touch them in any way, whether it's a cancer diagnosis or going through treatment or recovering from cancer. And what I like about this is you can filter the recipes different ways. So I just narrowed in on the by preparation to show that you can pick recipes that have 5 ingredients or less, 3 steps or less. So they're very easy recipes if you want. You can also do by dietary preference, and you can choose Mediterranean or vegan or whichever you prefer, low carbohydrate. There's also health considerations. So if you're having side effects like nausea or taste changes, you can pick recipes that way as well.